All our concepts and definitions mean nothing to someone who is totally unable to interpret them or give them any meaning. Everything in the universe becomes nothing, or presents this meaning that is perfectly equally valid or can thus also be perfectly admitted when there is no one to interpret the things or phenomena of the world, which we always do by comparison. Our way of defining things is always by comparing them, measuring them against other things. This way of things getting their meanings, only by comparison, shows that all things in the universe have an existence that is always only relative, never absolute. It also shows that everything or anything can only get its existential meaning only in a relative way, that the difference arising from change, from movement, is the most basic constituent concept of all the other concepts that we always obtain or construct by comparison. Someone who set out to measure the size of empty space in the universe would never encounter any physical obstacle that could be considered definitive, absolute, insurmountable, or immutable, that didn't just have an existence or an assigned meaning within the idea that everything also always means nothing. This truth that everything also always means nothing is always valid, can always be considered true, or can be applied in any situation in the universe. Nothingness, empty space, is infinite in extent in the universe because everything or anything can always also be perfectly regarded as being anything. An explanation of the origin of nothingness is not necessary. Nothingness has always been. It always is. It is a very reasonable hypothesis to consider that the existence of nothingness, the existence of empty space, is the only possible existence, infinite in measure, totalizing and absolute without any other type of truly absolute existence being able to exist in fact. Only relative existences that are not valid in all situations are possible or allowed for all other concepts formulated by man. The concept of full, for example, is always only a relatively valid concept because, well, you can always fill more. Anything you want is already considered full, which makes the concept of full, in reality, empty. There is no absolute insurmountable difference between any of our ever just seemingly different concepts of physics. There is no absolute or insuperable difference between matter and empty space. When one seeks to find the most fundamental building blocks of matter, one does not find any brick that has any absolute existence. Only tense empty space appears. There are many situations in physics where matter can be treated as energy and vice versa. It is also always verified the existence of a constant and exact proportionality, always present between amounts of empty space, amounts of matter, and amounts of energy in the vast majority of physical situations, which reveals the common nature, the perfect unity always existing between these apparently different concepts. Light propagates through empty space. Light is a disturbance, an oscillation, a movement in the void. This is only possible because empty space is a tense way. It is a characteristic of empty space that each point located in the void is always perfectly united in constant instantaneous communication with any other point of empty space, since empty space is everywhere the same in its constitution. All empty space is one and the same, something unique, indivisible, absolutely inseparable. Empty space is a continuous way and not something formed by actually separate parts, by really separate points formed by different individual or incommunicable natures in an absolute way. The hypothesis that empty space is a discontinuous or quantum way in its deepest formation is discarded as it does not correspond to the observed physical phenomena, because every point in empty space is always joined to every other point in empty space by its nature, even when relatively far apart by the distance that apparently separates them. Empty space is always a tense, continuous way. The distances that we perceive separating any two points located in empty space are always relative. They always depend on the observer to exist, or in other words, they do not exist in a definitive or absolute way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel and give your like if you enjoy it.